Derik Queen is this draft's most unique big. This is Floor and Ceiling. Let's break him down. Maryland freshman Derik Queen reminds me of a mix of Naz Reid and Alperen Şengün with his creativity as a self-creator, ability to attack off the bounce, and adept playmaking despite his non-traditional athleticism. Queen is averaging about 16 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists, and 2 stocks per game on high usage and overall good efficiency. Right now, he's in my top 7 to 13 range. I have the most fun watching Queen when he can show off his ball skills. These come in a variety of contexts. A close look at Derik's offensive profile this season shows us that he's being used in the pick and roll, in the post, or in transition, but I want to first focus on what he does putting the ball on the floor, starting with these face-ups or short drives. I love how Queen usually keeps his moves within 2 dribbles and how he uses his body to carve out space and access angles. A lot of the time, he'll drive right, take a couple of dribbles, and then look to spin left. Queen lacks lift and twitch, but he's physical, coordinated with real body manipulation, and he has a crafty, reactive handle that creates advantages. Maryland lets Derik face up and attack at the elbows, wings, and free throw line. Right now, he's finishing 71% of his 169 shots attempted at the basket, which is a really good figure. Then, I think Queen can also become a grab-and-go threat at 6'9", 6'10". This fits the modern NBA, and it will be valuable at his position, be that the 4 or the 5. Queen's last game against USC was a great example of his upside in the open court, where he can bring up the ball and make a decision. The Maryland freshman scores and passes. As we'll see, he's unselfish in general. When it comes to this department, Queen's ball handling, physicality, and creativity are crucial, but his rebounding, which is what starts things, deserves a mention too. The 20-year-old is impactful on both ends with great hands, averaging 9 boards per game. And since I just mentioned his age, it is worth pointing out now that Queen is older for a freshman. Another important part of Queen's game is how he attacks off the catch. This is translatable out of spot-ups as well, even if some of these clips are not exactly that. Instead, what I'm focusing on here is how comfortable and smooth Queen looks when he goes to his left hand. He does this on the left side of the floor or to get middle, but my takeaway is that he makes decisive moves and then finishes. By that, I'm again referring to Derik's ability to play quickly within 1 or 2 dribbles and to be assertive with his physicality, spin move, and crafty handle that I mentioned earlier. It's also worth noticing how many fouls Queen draws. His handle and creativity off the bounce are tough to contain for positional defenders, and this has been the case at every level so far. I think that Queen will be generally able to attack off the catch after he sets a screen, or if he's coming off movement or receiving around the elbows or free throw line, but being able to stretch the floor to any extent would definitely help him out in the NBA. This doesn't even have to be from 3, although ideally that would happen eventually. I do think that Queen will one day take triples on some volume, but that's not the case right now. This season, he's shooting 9% from 3 overall, and he's only made 2 of his 18 catch-and-shoot threes. Clearly, shots from downtown are not part of Queen's shot profile right now, although I still think that he does damage from the perimeter in other ways. When we get a bit closer to the basket, the signs are better. The most encouraging one that I'm looking at is how Queen has made 76.5% of his free throws on 149 attempts. That's solid conversion for a big, unreliable volume, plus I think that his touch as a whole is decent. Then, Queen has converted 6 of his 12 catch-and-shoot 2s so far, low volume, but still. And to go along with that, 8 of his 29 off-the-dribble 2s. That, at least, shows some willingness to shoot. Ultimately, I don't think that jumpers, in any shape or form, will be what NBA teams ask from Queen in a major way, but they are a part of his evaluation. Rather, what I consider the Maryland freshman's swing skill to be is the intersection of his athleticism, finishing, self-creation, and usage diversity. That's a lot of words, so what I'm basically getting at is that Queen needs the ball in his hands to be at his best, but he's not twitchy or fast exactly. Queen is around 6'9", 6'10", so he's sized more like a 4, but there's an argument to be made that he's at his best at the 5. On top of that, Derik is a very unique piece, so maybe it also takes some unique roster construction to get the most out of him. After all, not every team has room for a relatively heliocentric big who takes up a lot of the ball and makes plenty of risky decisions. Queen has a much higher ceiling than he does a floor, and I think that some of the limitations with his finishing embody this idea pretty well. Still though, I think that I can only be worried to an extent. Queen makes 64% of his shots at the basket in the half court, and for the season, he has 33 dunks. Getting into the post, Queen is fun to watch here. He scored on 53% of his shots down low, and this is where the Maryland native reminds me of Alperen Şengün more than anywhere else. It's that ability to put together pivots, fakes, and changes of direction while using his touch, size, and strength. When he's in the post, Queen does a good job of getting low and then exploding back up. He's at his best, spinning and faking out opponents with quick moves. In this area, we've also seen signs of Derik's touch and jumper with the fall away that he likes to employ. It's an unorthodox, one-legged fader, but it's tough to get to at Queen's size and given that he's fading back. Of course, some limitations again come into play here. Queen can struggle to get to his hook shot across the paint if his first 1 or 2 dribbles are contained, and yes, he's physical, but his balance can still get better. I think the tape backs up these concerns, but I have seen Derik be very impactful across multiple levels now while not having to change up his game that much. If it's needed, Queen can also be efficient in a more narrow role, although I wouldn't really be in favor of containing his creativity. Focusing on what I prefer first, Queen can finish plays in the pick and roll. Derik has touch at the rim, and he's able to make decisions and operate with discipline on the roll with the physicality and body control that we saw earlier on his drives. Equally though, the concerns with his lack of short space explosion and size and pop can also show up. Contextually here, I'll note that Queen plays in a 2-big lineup at Maryland with Julian Reese, so maybe there will be more space for him in the NBA. I don't really see Queen as a pure 5, but I'm sure he'll spend some time at the position. This season, most of Queen's possessions have actually come as a screener, but like I said, he does a bit of everything. What I don't want is for Queen to go to a team where he's only or largely a play finisher. If you want a big for that in this draft, there are other options. Quickly, I'll take the chance here to give Derik credit for getting in much better shape over the years. The Maryland freshman needs to continue toning up, but he gets up and down the floor, he takes a lot of touches, and he's regularly been playing around 35 minutes per game as of late. Queen's increased stamina and motor also come into play on the glass. He's always been a strong rebounder, but he can make more efforts more often now. Queen uses his body, magnet hands, and quick reaction time to come away with boards. His hand-to-eye coordination looks special. As of now, Derik is averaging 9 rebounds per game, with almost 2.5 coming on the offensive end. His advanced numbers also look really good. Again, Queen is not bouncy or even positionally big, but he moves people out of the way and he processes the game one beat ahead of most. That said, it's not like Derik is stuck to the ground. He can definitely dunk and he times his first jump very well. Sure, there can be limitations in traffic with his putbacks, but overall, I'm sure that Queen gives a team much more on the glass than he takes away. Lastly, the other big selling point on Queen is his playmaking. The 20-year-old is an entertaining and very willing facilitator, although his efficiency needs to improve. As of now, Queen is averaging 2.1 assists to 2.4 turnovers. His usage rate is quite high, but so are his turnovers, which will need to go down if Queen is to demand so many touches. Generally though, he's a fast processor and decision maker who gets creative with his deliveries. He makes passes on the roll, when he posts up, when he faces up, and in transition. Queen uses his size to see over the top of defenses, and if needed, he can also simplify things and play out of handoffs or pitch-offs, but I will say that his accuracy can be very improvable sometimes with passes thrown too high or too strong. He needs to be careful with that, as he has 64 total turnovers to 57 total assists. Queen is a risky decision taker, but he needs to pick his spots better sometimes or just keep refining his execution. Sometimes he's also guilty of driving right into the help, and defenders can read his spin move going left if they time themselves well. It'll be about finding a better balance, but overall, I see Queen's funky, out-of-the-norm deliveries as a big strength of his. He moves the ball side to side or from end to end with his vision, and that forces defenders to cover more ground, while also making sure that they're canceling out Queen's threat near the basket. Derik Queen's evaluation on defense is pretty straightforward, in my opinion. More than on offense, it's his athleticism that limits him on this end. His foot speed is limited, he's not very flexible when it comes to getting down in a stance, and he lacks the twitch to rapidly change directions. Queen also doesn't have much bounce, as we've already been seeing on offense, and sure, he's around 6'9 or 6'10, but that doesn't make him positionally tall, long, or even strong, although he is physical. Derik takes bumps sometimes, but I think that his balance and core strength still need to improve. More than anything though, it's the quickness that worries me. In the NBA, Queen is going to give up blow-bys, and at least to some extent, he'll have to be insulated on defense, although I think that will be to a large degree. At the same time, I don't consider the Maryland freshman to be a non-factor by any means. Like I just said, there are limitations that will need to be covered up, but Queen can create events on defense. Mostly, these come through his amazing hands, which I already highlighted down the other end. Queen's reaction time and hand-to-eye coordination are really great, and even though he's not quick of feet, he's really quick of mind. Queen has good instincts for knowing where the ball is going to be, and he has really active hands to rack up deflections and generally be disruptive. Queen averages 1 block and 1 steal per game, so he's doing stuff, and as we've seen, he can turn defense into offense with how he pushes in transition or tosses outlet and throw ahead passes. In 27 games, Derik has 54 stocks. Thinking about him more strictly as a big, it's worth looking at what Queen can do in the pick and roll, but again, I think the scouting report here is pretty simple. Queen is exclusively a drop coverage big right now, and even then, he has his limitations. Still, Derik will get stocks with his hands and positioning here, and I prefer how his athleticism shows up when he's directly involved rather than helping. One final thing to watch out for is how Queen has been at his best with another big or shot blocker next to him So I feel like that look is something that NBA teams will eventually look to replicate. As always, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like. Make sure to leave a comment telling me what you think of Derik Queen. Make sure to subscribe to the Floor and Ceiling Substack. And if you want to watch more content like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel as well. Take care, and I'll catch you guys next time.